speak to the political analyst Eugene Chausovsky. Eugene, thank you so much indeed for your time. Does the negotiation between Moscow and Washington over Griner and Viktor Bout have any indicator, or is it any indicator towards the negotiations that Washington and Moscow may have over the war in Ukraine?
I don't think that this latest prisoner swap is an indicator of a broader change in the overall strategic direction of the Ukrainian conflict or of relations between the US and Russia. However, it is a notable development in that it shows that tactical level cooperation, things like prisoner swaps or even the grain agreement, which was recently extended, is still possible within the conflict. But overall, I don't think this spells a major turn in the overall strategic direction of the conflict.
Regarding Vladimir Putin's comments a few hours ago, I mean, what he said about nuclear weapons is not new. He said it before. But what about when he admitted that the war may be a lengthy process? That's the first time I've heard him say that.
Well, I think this is just a reflection of how things are going on the ground for Russia. Obviously, they haven't been making the kinds of swift gains of territory that they were hoping for early on in the conflict. And indeed, Ukraine has even reversed some of those territorial gains recently. And so I think this is a reflection that Russia is still going to be pursuing this conflict. Putin himself has said that the goal is to basically militarily take over the regions that it has annexed in the past few months. And so that the conflict will remain an enduring one and one that doesn't look to be concluding anytime soon.
And do you think public opinion makes any difference to any decision-making in the Kremlin?
Well, I think that Putin has demonstrated that he is going to be pursuing this conflict, at all costs, whether that's economic, political as well. But I don't think that overall public opinion is going to be shaping Putin's decision-making in terms of executing the conflict. That will be primarily shaped by the situation on the ground, which, as we've already discussed, has been more or less of a stalemate with Ukraine being able to retake some territory. And really, Putin has kind of pushed all of his chips on the table in terms of this conflict and continuing to execute it.
Eugene, have you seen any research or any sort of opinion polls that show how the sanctions imposed by the West are affecting everyday life for Russian citizens? That could be something that might make people think more than once about whether they really support what the Kremlin is doing in Ukraine.
Well, I think that the sanctions passed by the US and EU were certainly a factor, a consideration for the West in terms of trying to deprive Putin of support for his war in Ukraine. But overall, I think that the Kremlin has demonstrated that it's going to be pursuing this measure, even with the sanctions, and indeed trying to basically blame the economic fallout within Russia on the West as a means to continue its war. So certainly it's not a popular issue on the economic front between the Russian public and the government, but between crackdowns on protests and overall hesitancy of the Russian population to do anything major in terms of rising against the Russian government, I think Putin has made the calculation that he's going to be able to weather these sanctions.
Eugene Chausovsky, thank you so much, Eugene, for your time. Really appreciate the analysis.